Well, it's October again. With the season upon us, I wanted to do something very special for the holiday, considering previous years I didn't have time to do much of anything really. I love the Halloween season, but I have to admit, as a kid I didn't really get to go trick-or-treating or dress up in costumes and all that. Because I grew up in a strict Christian household and trick-or-treating and celebrating Halloween was off limits. So to substitute, I watched a lot of Halloween specials growing up in the late 90s/2000s. That tradition continues to this day, seeing how I obviously have no children of my own to take trick-or-treating, and I'm too shy to go to parties. Last year, James Rolfe did his annual Cinemassacre Monster Madness Marathon, but he talked about some of his favorite Halloween specials he grew up with. I liked the idea and I wanted to do something similar. TV, after all, was a big part of my childhood, especially during the holiday season. So that's why we're here today, looking back on some of my favorite Halloween specials from my childhood in the late 90s to the 2000s. So let's get started. The 90s. When it comes to Halloween specials, where would be the right place to start? Of course, we all know the more evergreen specials like Garfield's Halloween Adventure, The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror specials, and of course, It's the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown. They're the ones we all grew up with, and I make a point to watch them every year. But how about Halloween specials for younger viewers? When I was a little one, the 90s were full of shows for preschoolers who in turn had their own Halloween specials. There was Sesame Street's Elmo Says Boo, the home video Barney's Halloween Party, as well as episodes of shows like Bear in a Big Blue House, Blue's Clues, and Out of the Box, which were Halloween themed. Because the audience were really little kids, these usually focus on the pretend play aspect of the holiday rather than any spooky stuff. As I got older, I also enjoyed my fair share of sitcoms, many of which I saw as reruns when I was a preteen in the 2000s, but since these came out in the 90s, I'll talk about them here. Of course, you got some famous Halloween themed episodes like the Evil Dummy Stevel episode of Family Matters, and its follow-up. Everyone knows those. Some of my other favorites are the Martin Halloween episode with the haunted house. Sabrina the Teenage Witch has several Halloween episodes, but my personal favorite is the one with Molly Dolly.
You don't toy with Sabrina, especially if you're a toy.
Really?
But one I barely hear anyone talk about is the Hex episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Even though the Halloween theme is pretty much a background thing, in this episode the family sees a psychic to speak to Hillary's ex-fiancé from the dead. How did he die, you ask?
Splat.
Will being Will mocks the psychic, which led to him putting a curse on the Banks family, and weird things begin to happen. Some of the highlights for me is Carlton dressing up as Macaulay Culkin, even doing the famous scream, and a twist on the Jazz Gets Thrown Out gag. It kills me every time. There were several Halloween movies in the 90s, but 1993 saw the release of two films that arguably defined a generation, Nightmare Before Christmas and Hocus Pocus. Nightmare had beautiful stop motion directed by the legendary Henry Selick. It's a visual wonder that has that Tim Burton mark of quality. I can praise the art direction for hours, not to mention the fact that the characters have become pop culture icons, and the music by Danny Elfman is iconic. It's one of my favorite films. I was introduced to Hocus Pocus during my many viewings of Disney Channel during the season in the 2000s. While I don't think the other characters are anything to write home about, and honestly they're kinda dull, the film perks out whenever the Sanderson sisters are on screen, played by Bette Midler, Kathy Najimy, and the distractingly hot Sarah Jessica Parker. Damn, they make this movie, and I'm just gonna assume the movie's cult appeal is because of them. There was even a sequel in 2022 that apparently people forgot about a month after it came out. Now let's get to Cartoon Network. Oh yeah, now we're talking. One of my earliest memories of Halloween on CN was in the late 90s, where they reran classic Halloween specials and spooky cartoons. One special I remember seeing at that time was the Bugs Bunny Halloween special from 1978. And something that stood out to me looking back was the not so seamless way they would cut from the fluid, timeless theatrical animation from the 40s to 50s to the cheaply made shoestring budget TV animation from the 70s.
Witch doctress?
I remember the Halloween Tree, the Hanna-Barbera special based on a Ray Bradbury story, and starred Leonard Nimoy. Watching it again recently, the animation still holds up, as it was animated by HB's Phil Cartoon Studio in the Philippines. They were to HB what Disney's Australian studio was to Disney TV animation in the 90s. The 90s marked the resurgence of Scooby-Doo, who gained a new generation of fans thanks to reruns on CN, myself included. It wasn't uncommon even back then to find a Scooby marathon, but the two I remember was during the Halloween season of 1998 and 1999. On Halloween 1998, CN showed a marathon of a pup named Scooby-Doo episodes, which led to the world television premiere of Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island on Cartoon Network's Cartoon Theater. You can imagine how excited I was to see that. Halloween 99 was the release of the Scooby-Doo Project Marathon, showing classic episodes and movies with the wraparound spoofing the Blair Witch Project. One of the biggest movies at the time. The segments are a loving parody of the original cartoons, and you could definitely tell the crew behind it had a blast making these.
Right, all right, riot rats. Oh.
She said giant cat, not rat, Scooby.
That's what I said. Rat.
Cat.
Well, rat.
Before we continue, if you like this or any of my other videos, I would ask you to consider supporting me on Patreon, where every dollar goes to production like software expenses and getting these out on a regular basis. You could get early access, a special credit, shout out to a YouTube, Twitch, or blog, a commission by me. You could even request a Hanna-Barbera or Tom and Jerry special for the Funtastic Legacy of Hanna-Barbera minisodes, which could be anything from this list. If you don't want to, you could also donate to me on Ko-fi. And liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and clicking the bell icon is much appreciated. Thank you all so much for your support. And now, back to the video.
Happy Halloween from the superstation.
Nickelodeon always did it big during the holidays with their cartoons and sitcoms, with sweepstakes events like Nick or Treat, Say It Slowly, and Halloween specials of their shows. There was Doug's Halloween Adventure, the Switching Hour episode of R.L. Monsters, the Halloweeny episode of The Adventures of Pete and Pete, just to name a few. While not technically Halloween, Cousin Skeeter had a spooky episode involving a haunted house. Cousin Skeeter was one of my favorite shows as a kid, but nowadays it's been forgotten. Rugrats had a ton of spooky and Halloween episodes, including a crossover with R.L. Monsters. But the very first Halloween episode aired during the first season, called Candy Bar Creep Show, which featured the babies trying to get a reptile bar during a Halloween party. The first season of Rugrats isn't really my favorite looking back, mostly because of the awkward animation, but I do love Peter Chung's original designs for the characters. Arnold's Halloween for Hey Arnold is unique because the whole special is a take on the mass hysteria caused by Orson Welles' 1938 reading of War of the Worlds, even going as far as to give Maurice LaMarche, a known Orson Welles impersonator, as the voice of the Welles-esque TV host. The Angry Beavers Halloween special had a fun spoof of the 50s sci-fi B-movies. SpongeBob SquarePants, premiering at the tail end of the 90s, had a Halloween episode during its first season, which marked the first appearance of the Flying Dutchman. But my personal favorite special of this era would definitely be Cat Dogula, where Dog gets bitten by a vampire tick and turns into a real vampire. Cat has to find a way to get him back to normal. This special is a lot of fun. Cat Dog are great characters, and I enjoy seeing them in any situation. And the premise is pretty creative, and is also very funny. I especially love the lead tick saying he wants something sweet, and then deciding to go all buy some kindergartners. Or the fact that there's a giant garlic on top of an abandoned building that for some reason haven't decayed in years. It's one I try to watch every year. The 90s saw the launch of Goosebumps, a popular book series by R.L. Stine, but I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Canadian TV show. I watched the show on Fox Kids during the Take the Ride era, and the series opener, an adaptation of The Haunted Mask, is the episode everyone remembers. It's about a girl named Carly Beth who's easily frightened by everything. She buys a Halloween mask that becomes stuck to her face, and she begins to act like a monster herself. This special has that 90s cheese I always find endearing. Some of the acting is hokey and the effects are pretty cheap, but for a show like this it works. It also featured wraparound segments starring R.L. Stine in the same fashion as Rod Serling in The Twilight Zone or The Crypt Keeper in Tales from the Crypt. The Disney Channel had two Halloween original movies, Under Wraps and Halloween Town. Under Wraps featured three kids who stumble upon and befriend a mummy, who they must return to his tomb the midnight of Halloween. It's corny, sure, but it's entertaining. It definitely has that Monster Squad / Goonies vibe. There was a remake in 2021, but I never saw it. Everyone remembers Halloween Town though, where three siblings follow their grandmother, a witch, to Halloween Town, where ghosts, goblins, werewolves, and all sorts of creatures live apart from the human world. There's a lot of creativity and imagination with these puppets, costumes, and world building. Halloween Town introduced my generation to the late great Debbie Reynolds. And watching it again, it made me realize how charming she was as an actress. You just enjoy watching her. Halloween Town was such a huge hit. It launched several sequels in the 2000s, including one where for some reason they switched out the main girl with Darcy's Wild Life. To this day, I don't know why they did that. Disney's Saturday morning block, one Saturday morning, had a tons of Halloween episodes for their shows, like Pepper Ran, Recess, and Doug after they acquired the franchise from Nickelodeon. Here's some honorable mentions. A Peeking in the Brain Halloween, Tiny Toons Night Ghoulery, Halloween from King of the Hill, Korn's Groovy Pirate Mystery from South Park. Come on, I'm a sucker for a good Scooby-Doo parody. And Timon and Pumbaa's Jamaica Mistake. No, it's not technically a Halloween special, but the spooky atmosphere and the fact that they go to the haunted house for a treat, I think it counts. Well, that's it for the 90s. Join me on Halloween as we take a trip to the 2000s.
Trick or treat, smell my pits. Feed me chocolate, give me zits.